Has she made any statements about wanting to hurt the children or anything?
Today she said with Gabe on the phone, come take the kids. I don't care what happens to them. Come take them.
I was there the day after that, and seeing that, I saw it when everybody else did. I didn't see it. Cops didn't show it to us first or anything. I saw it when everybody else did, and it was like, you know,
it was heartbreaking.
I was in shock because it was like, oh my God, you know. Yeah. I knew he told me all about that night. He told me every detail, and he had to get the door repaired because of where they kicked it in, and I mean, I was there during all that, and after the next day, and all the fallout from all that, and just trying to help him, talk him through, and okay, look, let's, you know, the money, you know, $35,000, that's a big hit for a lot of people, and how do you get through that in a business? So, you know, I mean, we had a business, and we just were there to help, and we did. We helped him however we could. Yeah. Charles, you know, I got up one morning and he was sitting in his office and he said, hey, come see. And so I was like, hey, what's up? And he said, look, he said, you know, I've got that $1 million life insurance policy. And he said, but I'm not comfortable with that because of Al and her, and I just don't know. But he said, I want to make you the beneficiary. And I said, well, Charles, I said, why don't you know, Cole and Zach they're of age, and he said, no, I want you, here's what I want done with it. And he knew I would do whatever he asked, because I would never not do what he asked. And I said, okay, but, you know, it'd probably be best to leave it with Cole and Zach, but okay, you know. He said, you and Larry's going to end up with JJ, so he'll, schools and stuff like that, he's going to need that money. And so I was like, okay, Charles, whatever. And it was maybe a minute and a half, maybe 2 minute tops conversation, and it was never spoke of again. So that day when we learned that we knew that they had murdered him, then I told Larry, I said, I don't know if he ever changed the beneficiary or not, so I don't know. I said, I guess the insurance company, if it is me, they'll contact me. That's, you know, and that's,
and we didn't
know. It was about a week.
It
was about a week because they called Lori called that Monday.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I think it was like Thursday when they called me. They told her no, she wasn't the beneficiary, but didn't tell her who. And then they called me Thursday and said, you're the beneficiary, and, you know, here's what you need to do. So that's when I learned about it. From the time Charles was murdered until the last call, August 10th of 2019, there were 3 times we got JJ, and all 3 times in that last 35-second phone call we had about 2 minutes total with JJ, in total with JJ after they murdered Charles. 2 minutes. We're talking FaceTime here. He would look up like this and he'd go, gotta go, Mama. Bye. And I'd be like, that was me, Lori, holding the iPad, telling him we gotta go.
Yeah, the thing was, he always made eye contact with us.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 2 positions with him. He was either right in our face or the iPad. We was walking around, and we could talk to him for a long time. Just walk around. He'd just walk around with the camera, the iPad pointing up
at the ceiling.
We knew the ceilings of their house better than we knew the walls. And the last couple of videos, it was very obvious that he was being coached. Right. Somebody was standing right there telling him, you know, it wasn't his normal. It wasn't, hey, Papa, hey, Mama, you know, and I'm going here, I'm doing this. And
Yeah, I'm playing with Braxy,
I'm
or
playing with
yeah, he didn't.
Braxy.
It was nothing like that. I remember one call specifically, and I was so mad at Lori. I think it was the second call we had, and the third call being August 10th. I think the second call she had with him, was it was at the end of the day. He was tired, and he just didn't want to be on the phone. He didn't want to FaceTime. He didn't want to talk to anyone. He was not far from a meltdown, I promise you, because I know how he acts.
Yep.
And so I thought, she knew. I had been emailing her, texting her, voicemails, and saying, please let us talk to JJ. Please let us talk to JJ. And then so that's when she gets him to call, or she lets him FaceTime us, as that night when he is really in the worst mood ever and didn't even want to talk. He just turned himself around in the chair and he was fussing and I don't want to talk. And so it's like she did that purposely, and that just was there were several things that happened after the murder that we knew that she was doing that just were putting a knife in our throat, in our heart, and just twisting it. And she was doing it purposely. It was no doubt about it.
We also, and especially myself, both of us, we noticed the change in his demeanor, and that only means one thing: she was not giving his medication to him.
Well, and she wasn't. All the changes that were happening.
Changes. Special need children like JJ have to have stability, and then in JJ's case, his motor was wound extremely tight, and his energy level was so high that his medication, there was no doubt in those videos before he was murdered that she had quit giving him his medication, because that was not the JJ acting that way that he acts around us and whenever we were there, and he was just being a normal boy. That was a heartbreaking video to us because it was so obvious to us. And that's about the time she was on the big zombie deals, and everybody was a zombie, and we all needed to die, and
yeah, we were zombies.
Named zombies and black clouds or whatever.
Dark. We were dark.
Yeah.
I was dark. I don't think you were. Larry is never dark. Just me.
But it was so obvious that JJ was not on his night medication, and
he was a different person when he was on his meds, and he got his sleep, and he was a different child. And you had to be consistent with his schedule, and make sure he's in bed at this time, and get him up at this time, and get him to school at this time. He needed that uniformity, but that consistency, but he was absolutely not getting it, and she was moving him around and introducing him to people he didn't know, and removed him from everything and everyone he knew, and even his dad. I mean, she took it, and Bailey, when Rich Robertson, our private investigator, told us I think it was either in October or November, that she had tried to sell Bailey. That was devastating. Yeah. It was devastating to us, because I was like, oh my God, Larry, that Bailey was like a babysitter for JJ. And so to get rid of Bailey, I mean, it was a very, very ominous sign, very ominous. But again, we still didn't give up, and we were still going to keep pushing forward, and we did. But there were just things that happened along the way that were just a knife in the chest. And
that was a major point where we felt that there was a severe issue, and because JJ loved his dog,
Yeah.
he loved Bailey.
Bailey was very
and
good for
Bailey
him.
was so good to him.
The next day, he couldn't meet with us, so we met with him the Sunday right after lunch. And anyway, so we started voicing our major concerns with his well-being the day when we found out he was murdered, and we got a hold of the detectives. And then when we got there and met him face to face, we're like, we are extremely unsettled about this. This is not right. He needs to be with us, but we really don't have any rights. So, then the next day we had to reach out to attorneys and all that, and it started then. And I mean, to the point to where I was asking the detective in Chandler, I was like, please go see if JJ's going to school every day. And so I had called the school, but they never called me back. And I also was trying to be careful because of the investigation into Charles's death. I didn't know how close the people were at school with Lori. So I just had to really I couldn't push anything. And I mean, we were just having to stay back and let the investigation go. But, if we had to do it all over again, I would have been the next day, I would have tracked her down and I would have snatched him right from her. So I'd be in prison for kidnapping, but he'd have been safe.